Yo, Talking Tactics Daily in here again. My name is Daniel Tiluk. Remember to follow the actual podcast at Talking Tactics wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Links are in the description to myself, Have Hope of the Have Hope Football Hut, and Carl Anka of The Athletic. 3 things I want to get to today. So again, I know I say this all the time, but I'm going to promise myself that we're going to be in here for no more than 20 minutes. That's the goal. We're going to talk about Arsenal and Chelsea, Barcelona, and maybe the Pep quote. Depends on time. Net spend. So Arsenal advance to the Carabao Cup final. They will be playing either Manchester City or Newcastle. More than likely Manchester City, but can you give Manchester City any wins these days? It's pretty tough. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. It was a game that Arsenal, more or less, I think they dictated the tempo, they dictated the stakes. Everything was within Arsenal's control. The first leg, they beat Chelsea 3-2 at Stamford Bridge. Probably should have been maybe a 2-goal margin. Yeah, I would say that. Like 4-2, 3-1, 2-0. It should have been in that range. But they allowed, was it Garnacho, to score a double. And that just made the second leg a bit more difficult than it needed to be at the Emirates. But you're controlling kind of everything. Arsenal didn't need to come out unless Chelsea made them. They were able to keep things tight, play for set pieces. Maybe the biggest thing that happened in the game was Chelsea actually did what a lot of pundits, analysts, I would say myself included, have been discussing, which is instead of making it a scrum of, 21 players inside of the 18-yard box or in and around the 18-yard box, why don't opponents on Arsenal's corners put people forward and ask questions of Arsenal defensively? Make them think about the potential ramifications of sending every man, woman, and child, as Have Hope likes to say, into the 6 and 18-yard boxes. Just make them think about it. And I think Chelsea were able to do that. They had 3 players normally at the midway point. And Arsenal took 3 players plus their goalkeeper and tried to make a 4v3. I was going to say 3v4, but it didn't sound right. So what you're doing in that instance is you're taking 3 to 4 players that would be in the box just causing chaos, and you're thinning it out for Robert Sanchez or whoever the goalkeeper might have been to easily claim, or to have a better chance of easily claiming, one of Arsenal's brilliant set pieces whipped in by a Rice, a Madueke, a Saka, whoever it is. Arsenal didn't seem, of course they're still dangerous, but they didn't seem as dangerous, and I wonder if it's a tactic. We've seen it with Monaco, we've seen it with Brighton. I think a couple other teams have tried it. Maybe it's something that could catch on and maybe slow down Arsenal's set piece dominance. I think they've scored more goals from set pieces than any team, or more goals from corner kicks. I saw a stat. Then I don't think it's of all time, but it is in like the last 10 years. I'll put it in the footnotes. I'll write it even down. Arsenal set pieces stats, because they have the most in a long time. That's as safe as I can say, but I don't want to give you guys bad information. So figuring out ways to slow that down is crucial, but Chelsea waited way too long in order to get the game going. And I think Rosenior wanted to make sure that Chelsea had a chance and that they didn't blow an early, just an early chance to Arsenal and the game gets out of hand. Once it gets to 4-2, now you really have to chase the game. So I think he was a bit conservative in his approach. And as I say a lot, 90 minutes is a long time for me to sit here and talk, for you to sit there and listen, for you to listen to, classical music if that's not your jam, to listen to rap music if that's not your jam. 90 minutes is a long time if you're doing something you don't want to be doing. But if you're doing something like football, which is fun, 90 minutes isn't that long. It goes quickly. And then again, the ball in the best of times is going to be in play for 60 of those 90 minutes. So really you don't have that long to kind of make an imprint in the game. So waiting to bring on Palmer and Esteval, and you take off, I forget, he took off Delap and he took off Hato. And so he kind of swayed the balance in terms of the attack. But you not wasted, but you didn't take advantage of 60 minutes. And I don't think Arsenal had their best game. They were waiting for Chelsea to do something. They were waiting for them to make them play. And Chelsea never really did enough except in the last maybe 10 minutes plus the added time, really to ask that question of Arsenal. And I suppose you could say if Chelsea played added time the whole game, if Chelsea played the whole game as they did in added time, Lord have mercy, then Arsenal would have scored. But I think there's a middle ground there. You don't have to be so forceful with sending everybody forward because now there's a situation where we have to score or we're out. You could have waited a little bit longer. Or at least you should have waited. What am I trying to say? You didn't need to wait as long to kind of get that momentum going. Because, again, Arsenal were just waiting for Chelsea to do something. And it took way too long for that something to come. Which is why we could maybe go to Cole Palmer. I could have flipped the pictures, to be fair. But yeah, I think the reason I brought up the reason I thought to use the Cole Palmer image is he's really, I wouldn't blame him for leaving because he seems really frustrated with whether it's João Pedro in seasons previous. I mean, we've seen him like really scream and berate Nico Jackson. I'm not saying that it's validating any of the rumors of him going back to Manchester, whether United or City or leaving Chelsea. But there are sometimes I look at his body language and the way he interacts with his teammates. And there's a part of me that thinks, man, that seems a bit harsh. That seems a bit cruel or rude or mean. But then at the same time, I think he's on a different footballing level to a lot of these guys, certainly in the attacking third. And when João Pedro isn't doing the right thing, at the very end of the game, Palmer could have played a ball forward to Garnacho. And he looked at him and he just decided no. And I was like, he's not passing to him. He's just not going to pass to him because in his mind, he's like, and this is purely conjecture, but it feels as if he looks at certain players and says, there's better options. Even though he's in space, he could run, he could do something. And Garnacho has the capacity to run by his fullback. But Palmer was just like, nah. And he looked at it and he just turned away from it. And I was like, that's if that's something conscious that he's doing, it's like, nah, he's playing against us in the kind of Karim Benzema Vinny vein. That's damning if you're Garnacho. We'll get to Garnacho in a second. But I feel as if there's something up with Palmer. And I think he's realized something. I don't know what it is, but he's realized something about what this Chelsea project is and his role in it. And maybe he's also realized I'm actually like nice. I'm actually very good at this thing. And if I'm not having the cooperation from the teammates or from my teammates that I need, I could easily see him, if he's realized this, and this is something I think a lot of us maybe determined when he broke out 2-3 years ago. Why should he stay? I know it might be hard if you're a Chelsea fan to hear like these questions, but I don't see a benefit. I was going to say a tangible benefit, even intangible. Like, why should he stay at Chelsea if he has the potential to go to bigger and better things? The whole Manchester United thing, I don't think is bigger and better things. But if Manchester City want you back, that seems a more promising project in some instances. Certainly the likes of Madrid or Barcelona or PSG or Bayern or whatever it is. Like, yeah, you would go to those. But yeah, sometimes you just latch on to players and you just watch them throughout the 90 minutes as best as you can, given the camera angles. And I was just drawn to watching Cole Palmer today. And the amount of times that he was in space, even in the last 20, 30 minutes when Chelsea were desperately trying to score a goal, as soon as he came on, if you think about it, he came on at 60 minutes. So for 30 minutes, he was like finding pockets of space, getting in between Arsenal's lines. The ball would find him sometimes, but not every time. And then the decisions that he makes and the way that he responded to other decisions, it's just he looks very frustrated. I also would be frustrated if they were making me play with Garnacho. I'd be mad too. Like, okay, how do I say it? Let's first start here. Garnacho is 1,000 times the footballer that I could have ever dreamed of being, right? So let's just start there. That in terms of like footballing ability and craft and all of that, like I'm in no position, zero positions to be criticizing Garnacho on some footballing level. However, relative to what it means to be a professional footballer, when I saw Cole Palmer just reject the pass, other times I feel like I would have been frustrated with like, no, just make the correct decision. Kind of like LeBron James, you know. There are times where LeBron James could shoot, probably should shoot, but what he's seeing on the floor, he determines in his brain, which is one of the best basketball computers that's ever existed. The correct decision here is to pass. So he passes. And if you pass correctly, if you do the correct move enough times on balance, but percentage wise, you will come out on top because you're making the correct decision and you play the percentages. Over the course of a career, you do that enough times, you will probably end up in more advantageous positions for yourself and your team. So the correct thing to do in that instance is to pass to Garnacho because he's virtually 1v1 with his fullback. I'm trying not to swear. I don't want to cuss Garnacho. But what is this fool going to do with the ball? Like, I passed to him, then what? We need a goal. Like, I need to pass to somebody who I'm confident in that's going to do something with the possession that I'm giving him. Like, who's going to keep care of this thing? And I think in many ways, the wing partnership of Garnacho, Gittins, Chelsea is just strange. And it makes for interesting conversation and dialogue. But Pep, you know what? I can bring up Pep here because this is part of the point. So Pep was discussing in, I think, his pre-match press conference before Newcastle that Manchester City are 7th in net spend in the past 5, 6, 7, however many years. And it's interesting because last year he was more complaining that he had too many players and he wanted a smaller squad. And now he has less numbers, but injuries and what have you have caused, him to shuffle the pieces around. And I don't think he's much liking it. So he's like, bro, Newcastle has spent more than us. Who are the clubs? It would be Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal maybe, and maybe there's another team that spent more than the Manchester City net spend. And what I felt when I watched it was, or when I listened to the press conference was, he sounds a lot like how Jose Mourinho might sound, or Jose Mourinho sounded way back when he would deflect. They'd ask him questions about how come your defense isn't doing this? How come your attack isn't scoring more goals? And Mourinho would come up with, there's a conspiracy against Chelsea. He would come up with just things, just great headlines that would deflect from the actual problems of his management when there were problems with his management. And when I heard Pep try to be just overly sarcastic and try the sarcasm and make a joke and things, it's like, you're not him on the mic. Like, you're not Mourinho. You're not it. Even Antonio Conte was pretty decent on the mic, but no, nobody is Jose. So Pep is trying to make a case that I'm outperforming the money that we've spent. We're second in the Premier League, and there are teams that have spent more net spend behind us. So how bad am I actually doing? And I relate this to Chelsea in the sense that Chelsea are spending the money. Chelsea are, buying players. But the players that they're buying, it's like you don't see evidence of it on the pitch because they're buying this particular model of player, which in some instances works. Caicedo was good. Enzo's turned out to be good. Cole Palmer's turned out to be good. Cucurella is blossoming into one of the best left backs and the most annoying footballer on the planet, I'm sure, if you were to take a survey. But at other times, you look at who they've bought goalie wise, center backs, strikers, wide players, barring Esteval. And it's like they hit in certain areas, but they miss in other areas, and it seems consistent. And I think, again, Garnacho and Gittins in this round of Chelsea transfers are becoming emblematic of just the deeper scouting, squad building issues that Chelsea have, where there are good players in the team, some borderline world-class players, I would say, in Cole Palmer, who seem not to trust their teammates on a footballing level. Maybe they trust them around their children. Maybe Garnacho's a good guy. Maybe Nico Jackson can hang out with the homies or whatever. But on a footballing pitch, do I trust giving him this spherical object and making good decisions with his feet? No. And to be fair, I think Palmer was mostly harsh whenever he responded to Nico Jackson. Jackson is a striker. He's supposed to shoot when he sees the goal. Like, that's just the mentality that position is supposed to have. Of course, you can be frustrated with it, but you want a greedy striker at the end of the day. What you don't want is a nominal winger who you don't trust to give the ball to beat. Timber's good, or whoever you're playing out there, if you're Arsenal, are decent, but you should be able to do something against them 1v1 to get a cross in. And there were just so many opportunities where Chelsea, somebody does something, they dribble somebody, and then the cross goes in, and there's no cross. I was going to say a cross goes in. If a cross went in, it might actually end up in a goal or something. But like, it's just just nasty football. I don't like watching Chelsea. And I can only imagine being a good player in the Chelsea team, being surrounded by it, and the kind of weight that must feel like. So I'm sympathetic whenever I watch, just pay attention to Cole Palmer. We'll just make a quick. Barcelona beat Albacete, and they've advanced to the semifinal of the Copa del Rey. Yamal scored a great goal again. First time finish, left foot, took the keeper probably by surprise, I would say. The goalie scored. Then in the second half, Araujo was given the start. I think he was captain of Barcelona. Marcus Rashford puts in a corner. Araujo scores from that set piece. And at 2-0, it felt as if Barcelona were pretty much cruising to this victory. But I shouldn't say but. Albacete played decently. Like, they weren't horrible. and they scored 2-1. I was watching this one on the side screen because they were more or less happening around the same time, with Chelsea Arsenal. So it looked as if Barcelona had it under control until the point where it didn't. And I wonder, not even if I wonder, the question that I have about Barcelona is, when you're playing teams like last season, when you play Inter, teams that have the tactical, technical, and just overall strength to ask serious questions of these tactics that you're employing, what does that look like? So it seems a tactic, the way that Barcelona play, that is built to win a league, because you're going to be playing, most of the time you're going to be playing teams that aren't on your footballing level, and you'll be able to more times than not take advantage of them. And then even when you play the big boys, like a Real Madrid, like an Atletico Madrid, of course they're going to get their licks in because they have decent players. But more time than not, you're going to come out on top. And I feel like it's a style of football that Hansi Flick employs that lends itself to doing well in the domestic league. Cup football is a bit different. Maybe inside of your country, you can also get away with it. We'll see what happens maybe with Valencia and their next game. I think Atletico Madrid is still in the cup, even though Valencia are trash. That was my 2012 brain talking there. Valencia aren't that good. I say that. Real Madrid, be careful on the weekend. So you'll get away with it. But in Europe, in the Champions League, when you get to that quarterfinal, semifinal, final stage, and you're playing a Bayern, a PSG, an Arsenal, Inter, as I said last season, Manchester City, who knows, they may catch Real Madrid, you never know. You can't play 180 minutes of football like that, because it gives the opposition a chance. It gives them chances that they shouldn't. Even Elche, third man runs, and it feels like a tactic that isn't fit for purpose once we get to the final stages, the latter stages of the season. And they're not going to stop playing this way. And there's a huge, huge, huge respect to Hansi Flick for sticking to his principles. Kwame Nkrumah said any compromise of principle is an abandonment of principle. So shout out to Osajifo for that one. At the same time, I'm largely sympathetic and empathetic to the idea. However, you can't just be blindly playing one way. And I do think Barcelona have tempered it slightly. It's not as aggressive as it was last season, but you watch those games that should be easy, games that are easy, and then all of a sudden something happens and it becomes difficult. And my mind goes back to, Inter Milan. They should never have lost that game. But they conceded 6 goals to Inter over 2 legs. And Inter Milan, who are not some offensive juggernaut, a Cherby. Forgive me, Italians. The tattooed old defender. Scoring a goal against you like that to equalize, and then just the game went how it went. It's just, I would hope that some lessons have been learned, and we'll see what happens in the Champions League. But because I do think this Barcelona team has the potential to be not just good or really good, but like great, not all-time great or anything like that. But you could easily see them winning a treble. They could win Copa del Rey. They could win La Liga. They can win the Champions League. They can do all of those things. But do I trust them in those big games against teams that have the wherewithal to really punish them? How is it just going to be we'll outscore you? And if it is, then bro, Lewandowski, we need more. Rafinha, we need more. As good as Yamal is, we need more. Rashford, you've been good, but we need more. And I think even Flick hinted that, that Marcus Rashford, he's good. He's outperformed the expectations. but we need more from him. And if you're Pedri, stop being injured. And if you're, De Jong or Ferran Torres or whoever it is, we need more from you. Fermin, more. So, it's the, not to invoke Kobe Bryant and what was it? Kanye West, where he's like, we need more. How much more can I give? Is it? And Kobe's just like, more. That's the tactic. It's just they need more offensive output just from everywhere. And I'm skeptical how far you can take that. I feel like I'm rambling and I want to get under 30 minutes. So we're just going to shut the hell up. My name has been Daniel Tiluk. Remember to follow the pod wherever you listen. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Have Hope and I should be recording tomorrow, probably before Man City play Newcastle. And we'll talk about all of these things and more for sure. So yeah, I will check you guys probably Thursday, but maybe tomorrow.